Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andresa.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andresa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, where our mission is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. And we're going to be talking about how to set yourself up for success when you have to have difficult conversations.
For all the people that are like, no, pay me. I don't want to have them. Well, I think in real estate, right? You can avoid it. In life, you cannot avoid it. So how can we embrace it and find a way that fits our needs, but also it does not hold us back from growing and living the life that we want to live, right?
You know, there's no reason, Andresa, that I'm even bringing this up, right? I don't have to have any difficult conversations with anyone. It's laughable, right? As you scale, as you grow, just like Andresa was just saying, we find ourselves having to have more of these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
And also as we grow ourselves, conversations you would have avoided, when you were maybe younger. You don't avoid as much anymore. You don't stand for things the way you may have stood for them. And I think that's really, really important as we grow as women, as we grow as entrepreneurs, and obviously as we grow as investors. So I have a few tips I prepared as I've thought about recent difficult conversations.
Which one?
I know, right? Which ones have I had? And I will say this from someone who, just to be very, very frank and honest with, just me and you, Andresa, that I don't particularly like having difficult conversations. One of my deepest needs is for peace and harmony. And literally, I seek peace in every conversation. I seek peace in every relationship. Every meeting I have, I want peace. That's like my number one need. Obviously, that's not possible, right? In every conversation, in every meeting, in every situation. However, ourselves, we have to be mindful of who we are and how we have to adapt. And difficult conversations is part of life. And it actually helps me have more peace. So when you start to think about, if you are someone who particularly, I don't know who really enjoys them. I think some people are personality wise have an easier time with them. But if you are someone who's like, I just avoid them, to be honest with you, I would say, let's start looking at embracing them and start connecting with who you are and how it's going to create more harmony and more peace, internal peace, relationship peace. When you connect it to that, you'll set yourself for success. So that's just prerequisite. But I have 3 quick steps, and Andresa, I'll throw it to you to see if you have anything to add from your perspective. So number 1 is get clear on the facts versus the story. You may have heard us talk about a lot on our podcast. And obviously, you are an investor. You are a woman who wears a lot of hats. And, when we have a difficult conversation, it's a difficult situation. It's not just a conversation. It's usually connected to a situation that something is a little, maybe a little off or not aligned or lack of alignment, right? So number 1, you really want to set yourself up for success by saying, what are the facts in this, situation and in this conversation I'm about to have? What is my story? Maybe your story is your perception of the person. Your story is things you've made up in your head. You think about all the things we make up in our head. I mean, I have full-on conversations with multiple people in my head sometimes, which I'm a little nutty sometimes, right? I'm not talking to anyone, I'm talking to myself, right?
So when I'm part inside your head, multiple people are having conversation?
Yeah. Well, different sides of who Liz is has conversations. Yeah, that's another day, another recording for another day. But, meaning like your positive self versus your negative thoughts, right? Your negative self or your brain, as we'd like to say. What is your brain saying? So we have these conversations we have in our heads. So you really have to make sure you're clear on what is the fact here and what is the story. The story is, again, just your interpretation of what happened. It's not necessarily what happened. So I really encourage you to start to get clear with that before you get on a phone call with someone. Okay. Number 2, anything
Can I mention about my story?
Yeah.
When we start getting to the stories / justifications why we did or we didn't, then we derail the conversation. So bringing awareness to the conversation and stating the fact, it is what it is. Again, it is what it is without us putting like meaning into it. Wrong, right, better, worse, because the stories really it doesn't matter. It's just a waste of saliva. So if we can stick to the facts and let go of the stories would be a much easier way to communicate with one another. So we don't have to have like 3-hour conversation about people's stories and not the fact by itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good insight. Number 2 is to go with a seek to understand perspective versus I'm right perspective. So again, I don't know what it is with us humans, but when you go into a difficult conversation, most people are going in kind of like with their dukes up. They're going in, I'm right. I want to be
So
right.
what? Dukes up?
Yeah, dukes up. Your hands up.
Oh,
Dukes.
we
I love
did
you,
just
Andresa.
learned something new today. Okay.
You go in with your hand, your metaphorical hands up. And I know most women
Okay.
aren't going to fight each other, but metaphorically, right? We put our hands up and we sometimes kind of go in for a fight or to be right. So what we really want to do is you really want to go into a conversation. And I had one recently, number of them recently. And I stopped myself to say, how can I seek to understand? Because when you come from the place of how do I seek to understand, and that's a Stephen Covey coined term, I didn't create it. One of his 7 habits of highly effective people is to seek to understand, then to be understood. Wow, if we did that all the time, right? We'd have more peace and more understanding from people. You could state your perspective, but again, people don't want to hear your perspective if you're not even listening, right? It's just not. So again, that's number 2 is to really kind of go in with that perspective. Number 3 is all about when you get on the call, try not to go down random conversations. You really want to state the intention of the call and be really clear with that person. I was on a recent call and the first thing I said is like, listen, just really appreciate your time. I really just want to state the intention that I have for this call. And I'd love to hear what you want to get out of our call. And then we could figure out, where we go from here. And that might mean we continue to work together. That might mean let's just, metaphorically shake hands and we'll be in a relationship together. So again, when you get really clear on the overall intention, it starts to like decrease the anxiety or the intensity of that conversation. What's this going to mean, this difficult conversation? Am I going to keep that contractor? Am I going to keep that team member? Oh man, I'm really going crazy with this partner of mine, right? Or whatever it is for you. So when you go into the intention of what is your intention and how do you understand their intention, then you will have at least an outcome of that call. It may not be, exactly what you think or they think, but at least you're shaking hands and at least you're parting ways in a very clear, intentional way. And that's what we all want. Jessica, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I totally agree with you, and I think that's essential. I don't think people should be in conversations on the phone or in person without knowing why are you having that call? Why are you meeting that person? So the intention or quote unquote the agenda for the conversation clears the air in terms of we're speaking about the same subject. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you're having a conversation and you are not talking about the same subject and you don't have the same goal. Meaning, listen, I am, as you mentioned, Liz, I'm not attached. We either continue working together or not working together. We just want a resolution or a way to move forward here. And that is the intention of the call. How can we move forward, clear the air, fix some breakdown in communication, whatever that is. But then it's a commitment and an agreement that both parties are talking about the same subject. Without that, I don't think anybody should be in any type of conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's applicable for any conversation versus just a difficult, especially a difficult one. But yeah, your point is so well taken. And I think the other piece to this is to really be authentic and speak your truth. I don't know where along the way so many women, right, and men too, but I know women struggle with really speaking what's on their heart and what's really coming up for them. I don't think often some women may even know that for themselves. So that's the work you need to do to get clear because no one's going to do that for you. It's like going to the gym, right? It's like eating healthy food, maintaining relationships. No one's going to do that for you. You have to do that work to say, where can I be most authentic in this conversation? And what do I really need to speak my truth? What does that look like for me versus just accommodating or, kind of just, not really speaking what needs to be said. I think it's easy sometimes in difficult conversations to skirt around things, but it's not helpful for anyone. And you could say it with kindness. You can really have a difficult conversation with kindness. It's a skill, right? It's not the easiest thing to do. I know when I get my back up, last thing I want to do is be kind, right? I just want to be right. I want to be right and I want to be heard. But we need to be kind in that process. And that's a good reminder for all of us. I'll also say, I want to piggyback on what you're saying, Andresa, and then we'll wrap. Is that sometimes when you're having a difficult conversation, it isn't about the thing you're having. It's a deeper issue. So especially if it's something with your spouse or your partner and you're talking about something like a time or something superficial and you're fighting over it.
Not about the trash.
It's not about the trash. It's not about the thing. It's not about the fill in the blank. And so again, as you master relationships, you master yourself, you start to take a step back. I mean, Andresa and I were having this conversation weeks ago, right? About a colleague and just, it wasn't about the thing. They were really we were really reaching out to Andresa about it. It was about something deeper. And so in relationships and difficult conversations, be mindful of that. So again, get clear on the facts versus the story. Go in with a seek to understand perspective versus I am right. And during that call, at the beginning of the call, state your intention up front and what what your intention is for that call and where you want to see it go, and be as authentic and straight with kindness as you can. So that's what I have for this week.
Thanks so much for listening. If you want to know more about what stories are and what's going on in our world, please share your thoughts and comments about this episode on our Facebook community group. We welcome you. We are your board members. Share what are your challenges, your goals, and we will support you all the way. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.